Okay, let's look at double object pronouns. Okay, so up until now, what have we learned? We've learned what a direct object is, what a direct object pronoun is. We know what they are. Okay, me, te, lo, la, nos, and les. Uh, we know our direct object pronouns, and now we've learned the indirect object pronouns. Again, you need to spend a little time. It's very simple. We have them in English as well, the indirect pronouns, and it means to or for. So to me, for me, to you, for you. And again, they overlapped the direct object pronouns. Sometimes they're exactly the same. So the indirect object pronouns would be me, te for to, and then now we have a new one, le for to him, to her, or for him, for her, or you, nos, and then les for them. And then finally, we have another indirect object pronoun, which we only use when we have double object pronouns, and it's se. To him, to her, for him, for her, or se could mean to them or for them. So let's take a closer look at our double object pronouns. So again, I just went through these. Here is the subject pronoun. Here it's corresponding indirect object pronoun, and it's direct object pronouns, and kind of what they mean. You should be familiar with this. This is not that difficult. It does take a little time to absorb, but once you know what your indirect objects are, your direct object pronouns are, you should be able to work fairly easily with these. So let's take a look. Double object pronouns, placement. When we're working with double object pronouns, and again, what do I mean by double object pronouns? It's when we have a direct object pronoun used together with an indirect object pronoun. And we do it in English all the time. I gave him it. I told her it. I gave you them. Okay, we use them in English all the time. So I just want you to be aware of that. So let's take a look at this. So in Spanish, where do we place the double object pronouns when we use two pronouns together? And here we say they are always placed immediately before the conjugated verb. Okay, when we have one verb in the sentence, and I'm going to try to keep it simple here. There are other placement rules when we have more than one verb or verb form, but for our purposes, let's just work with one verb in a sentence. You're going to place your double object pronouns before the verb, before the conjugated verb. So let's take a look at the direct object pronoun. El agente ofrece el pasaporte. So it says the agent offers the passport. Now we want to get rid of the passport, the direct object, and put in the direct object pronoun. El pasaporte is masculine and singular, so the way we say it now is lo. Where do we put the lo or the direct object pronoun? It always comes before the conjugated verb. El agente lo ofrece. Everybody see that? In English, we would put it after the verb. In Spanish, we put it before. Okay, and the same with the indirect object pronoun. Now, let's look at double object pronoun placement. It's the same. They're going to be placed immediately before the conjugated in verb. Okay, in English, they go after the verb, but so let's take a look. So double object pronoun placement. In Spanish, the indirect object pronoun is always placed immediately before the direct object pronoun. So now, if we have two pronouns, double object pronouns, we always put the indirect object pronoun first, okay? And then the direct object pronoun. If you can remember that, you've got this 50% under control, okay? And I've got numerous examples here. I also have another video posted for you, and of course you have the materials in the textbook in your examples to work with in your homework sections. But so let's take a look. Using the two Spanish statements above, we can rewrite them using double object pronouns following these placement rules. So here are your placement rules. Let's take a look. El agente me lo ofrece. The agent offers it to me. All right. Or the agent offers me it. So you can see in English, when we have an indirect object and a direct object pronouns, we use them just like in Spanish, and we actually follow the same order as in Spanish as in English. We put the indirect object first, to me, and then it, lo, after, and they both come before the conjugated verb. And essentially what we're saying, el agente me lo ofrece, means the agent offers me it. And again, this sentence is referring to the last slide about the passport. Okay. Now, here's an important thing just to note. Sentences in Spanish with double object pronouns can also be expressed with the subject moved to the end of the sentence. Just be aware of this. So I could say, the agent offers me it, okay? El agente me lo ofrece. Or I could say, me lo ofrece el agente. And you'll often hear it that way. The actual subject of the sentence is at the end of the sentence. And on your test, you're going to see some questions this way, possibly. So, me lo ofrece el agente is the same as el agente me lo ofrece, but your word order, you can put the subject at the end of the sentence. I'm pointing this out and taking the time because it could be a little confusing. If you just look at this and internalize it a little bit, it makes this a whole lot easier. All right, let's take a look at some examples. So it says, consequently, sentences in Spanish frequently start with double object pronouns. So it might not start with the subject, and that will throw people off. So don't be thrown off anymore. Realize that with your subject object pronouns, you can start a sentence off that way. Let's look at some examples. Here we have, el mesero explicó el menú a mí. So we just have a full sentence. Here, there are no object pronouns. Now let's sub out the direct object and the indirect object with their pronouns. We can rewrite this as, el mesero me lo explicó. There's my indirect object. It always comes first. Then my direct object is lo. It comes second. And they always come before the verb. Okay? Now I can restate this and put the subject at the end of the sentence. Me lo explicó el mesero. And that's often how you'll see these used. So please get used to this. Okay, now there's one other wrinkle with double object pronouns. There is the double object pronoun se. Okay, so let's see, when do we use se when we have double object pronouns? Spanish does not permit double object pronouns to include both pronouns when they both begin with the letter L. So they can't both begin with a letter L. So you can't have le, lo, or les, las. You can't have two double object pronouns beginning with an L. And so there's your rule. So what do we do in such a case? Okay. We would get rid of the indirect object pronoun beginning with an L, whether it's le or whether it's les. We would get rid of it and we replace it with se. So se can either mean le or les, and we get rid of the le or the les when the direct object begins with an L, because we cannot have two object pronouns beginning with L. So let's take a look at an example. So Bob bought the dress for her, okay? Or Bob compró el vestido a ella. Okay, now that's without double object pronouns. Okay, Now, what if we wanted to now use it with double object pronouns? In English, we would say, Bob bought her it. Indirect object, direct object. And in Spanish, we would say, Bob se lo compró. All right, not Bob le lo compró. Again, le would mean to her or to him. In this case, we want to her, that would be le. But you cannot have two object pronouns that begin with L. You always sacrifice the indirect object pronoun le or les, and you change it to se. So you would never have Bob le lo compró. I hope you understand it. Here's another example. Bob les ofrece los boletos. So we're saying Bob offers them the tickets. We would if we wanted to get rid of los boletos now and have a double object pronoun, we would say Bob offers them them. So it'd be Bob se los ofrece, not Bob le los ofrece. Okay, let's rewrite each one of these sentences as you would write them with double object pronouns. Let's look at the sentence. Bob, okay, te da el boleto a ti. What are we saying there? Bob gives the ticket to you. Now we want to say Bob gives you the ticket. So, Bob te lo da, or te lo da Bob. Again, you could put the subject at the end of the sentence. You've got to put your indirect object pronouns before the conjugated verb. You lead off always with the indirect object pronoun te, and then you put in your direct object. Here's another one. El agente le da la tarjeta de embarque. Okay, so we want to say the agent gives you gives him or her the boarding pass, gives the passenger the boarding pass. So we want to say el agente se la da. Okay, al pasajero. So the agent, literally se la. You've got to him would be le, but you can't have le la, so you change it to se. It's la because it's la tarjeta de embarque. Gives it to the passenger. Notice how redundant Spanish is. In English, I would never say I gave the book. Well, in English, I would say I gave the book to Bob. In Spanish, I would say I gave to him the book to Bob. They would also include not just the pronoun, the indirect object pronoun, but they would also include the person, which is the indirect object. It's redundant in Spanish. Let's take a look here. Ella recogió el equipaje para mí. So we're saying she picked up the baggage for me. All right. Now I want to use double object pronoun. She picked it up. She picked me it up. Ella me lo recogió. For me, the indirect object comes first and then the direct object. And here are some other problems which you can look at. All right. And then finally, in this slide, I've given you some problems you can do on yourself, do by yourself. Take a look at these and just get used to using double object pronouns, okay? And the answers are there, and I'll let you go through these. And don't forget, as you study for your Chapter 9 test, please look at the study guide. It will be very helpful. The question on indirect object pronouns requires a little bit of thought. Thank you.